Something was different. Something was awakening. No, it had already awoken, and now it was curling, tensing, preparing to strike. A hunter in a nest of prey. "Wake up," a voice sang. "Wake, awaken, wake, light, live." Lucian blinked awake. What? His eyelids dropped over in protest, and closing his eyes in twin tombs, spots of light bursting in the corners of his vision. "Hello? Are you awake? Are you awake? Wake up!" "Oops. I think I woke him up," said a boy's voice. Lucian flinched and forced his eyes open. One of his fingers twitched. His head spun, his tongue felt too big to be in his mouth. "Ah, finally! I thought you were in a coma and you were going to sleep for the next 100 years. And then I thought you were dying. And then I thought you were dead. But anyway, I'm glad you're awake now," the boy's voice paused. Lucian blinked at the blurry image of a face hovering above him. "What's your name? Where'd you come from?" the voice said again. Lucian's head resumed its spinning. He had to close his eyes so he wouldn't throw up. "Are you alright?" the voice asked. "Back away," another voice said, this time a girl. Lucian felt something inside of him shift as he recognized the voice. Yes, he knew the sound of that voice. Like wind, like cold stone, like tears and sorrow and the moon clinging to the sky. Strange, beautiful, deadly. But whose voice was it? He couldn't remember. Lucian tried to push himself up, but his arms were extremely disobedient and collapsed underneath him. He fell back down, hard, onto whatever he was lying on top of. "Careful, you don't want to lose your balance. Especially not here," said the first normal voice. "Don't touch him," the familiar girl commanded as Lucian felt a hand steady him. He blinked quickly several times to clear away the blurriness. His bruises were starting to ache as they rubbed against the fabric of his clothes. Lucian gingerly touched his throbbing forehead and, as his vision finally cleared, saw the two people that were standing over him looking down with concerned faces. Actually, only the boy looked concerned. The girl on the right, however, looked as if she didn't even know what emotions were, much less have them. Her features were delicate, beautiful, but with a type of unsettling sharpness to them that didn't fit with how expressionless her face was. Her eyes unnerved him. They were dead-looking, glittering black, fathomless. Lucian watched her pupils contract as she glared down at him. She looked familiar, in a very strange way, and her face brought back a sudden wave of memories, visions that Lucian couldn't quite catch as they flashed by, nothing but simple impressions of light and noise. The boy, on the other hand, the one who'd spoken to him first, was completely different. He had charcoal hair that spiraled disorderly, golden brown skin that flushed light red with excitement, and a smile so bright that Lucian was pretty sure it was going to burn his eyes out of their sockets. He beamed down at Lucian, still smiling rather maniacally, hands fidgeting with the loose threads of his faded brown jacket and dull green shirt covered with scuff marks. Lucian glanced back at the weird-looking girl, who looked very out of balance next to the boy, with her black leggings made out of strange, strong-looking fabrics, worn gray cotton crop top, and loose black leather jacket attached to a tattered cape. Lucian winced at his reflection in her polished black knee-length boots. His face was so bruised he looked like a different person, one who was quite chubby and had decided to paint their face purple. Even his hair looked threadbare. Then he caught another reflection of his battered face, this time in the smooth, cold reflection of a sword's blade. He blinked confusedly, still half asleep, looking at the two swords clipped to the girl's belt, one of which was unsheathed and had an edge of dark red. He squinted. The red was dried blood. "Well?" the girl barked. "Possessed yet?" "What?" Lucian choked out. Never mind," she said, with a glance at Babek. "What's your name?" Babek asked again. "Lucian," he answered flatly, before he realized that he shouldn't be spewing his name out to random strangers, even vapid-looking ones. Cool. What's your last name? Babek asked. I don't have one, Lucian said, suspicion tightening around his gut. Of course you do. Everyone has a last name. Don't worry, you can trust us, Babek said. Lucian was seized with a strange, sudden feeling. His lungs contracted, his heart shoved at his rib cage. Gritting his teeth, trying to breathe past his tense chest, his voice tore free of his control. That depends on who you are, he answered, which was certainly not what he had been trying to say. It was as if he'd lost control of his own voice for a second, as if someone else was controlling him. Oh, I'm Babek. That's Ava. Can I call you Lou? Lucy? Cian? Lulu? Babek answered happily. Lucian's chest loosened, the strange feeling dissipating as Babek spoke. You idiot. Do you just go around telling your name to everyone who asks? Ava snapped. Yes, that's what a name is for, Babek tried. Ava scowled. Imbeciles die first, she snarled, flicking a speck of dried blood off her sleeve. Cool. Anyways, welcome to the reverse realm, Lucian, Babek said. The what? Lucian said. The reverse realm, Babek said. One of the main 7 realms. Ava told me you probably fell through a universal rip, or like a rift in time from the space-time realm, and then you landed here. Back where he belongs, Ava said. What? Lucian said again. What? Ava replied, as if she hadn't said anything. Come on, Babek cut in. Let's take him back to the island. He can go on daring adventures with us. Well, actually, we don't go on many daring adventures. Mostly Ava just drags me around to different places to do her weird stuff or whatever. I need to get home, Lucian croaked, ignoring his sore muscles as he pushed himself up to sitting, the events of the day suddenly rushing back to him. Screams, crying, flashes of lights, Mike. Blood rushed to Lucian's head, eating away at his vision, making his stomach heave nauseatingly, and he paused to calm his rattly breathing. Oh, home? That might be a problem, Babek said. Where is your home? Orphanage, Lucian croaked. After a moment, he added, London. Where's that? Babek asked. Lucian twisted around to give him an incredulous stare. Sorry, never mind. Wait, you said orphanage. That's funny, because we don't have parents either, Babek said, sounding oddly happy, and indicated himself and Ava. Why, Ava sighed, do you feel ever so compelled to tell every single bit of your personal information to anyone who asks? How old are you? Babek said, having not heard Ava, and then, after Lucian shot him a suspicious look, he added, I'm 11. Ava's like 13 or something. Ava cuffed him on the side of the head. Did you hear what I just said? Babek ignored her. I'm almost 12, Lucian answered, eyes glazed, still not seeing anything but broken bodies, blood seeping into cold cement, Mike's terrified face. He shook himself back to the present, focusing his gaze forcibly on Ava's cold features so that his mind couldn't wander again. Almost 12? Ava echoed, forgetting to box Babek's ears. Then we got to you in time. What do you mean? Lucian asked. Babek shrugged. Ava just says stuff like that sometimes. And also she says, complain one more time and I'll kill you, and I hear one more word about that smart little mouth and I'll tear it off your face, and stuff like that. She's kind of mean. Stop oversharing or I'll break both your legs, Ava said. See, Babek said. I have to get back, Lucian repeated, having not really been listening to the conversation at all, and pulled himself to his feet. Watch it, punk. Don't die too soon, Ava snapped. Ooh, don't look down, Babek said. Lucian looked down. Below his feet was a very thin, flat strip of land, covered with red tiles on one side, black tiles on the other, like a strange balance beam or a path. It ran on towards infinity, fading to the distance, and was just barely wide enough for two people to stand shoulder to shoulder. All around them, identical structures cut through the air, long, never-ending straight paths as far as the eye could see, crisscrossing and passing over each other sometimes, and in the empty spaces in between, there was simply nothing. "Watch this," Babek said gleefully, and then stepped over the edge of the path. A yell built in the back of Lucian's throat as he prepared to see Babek fall downwards forever and ever until he disappeared in the blank white space. But Babek was hanging upside down by his feet on the other side of the path. "Isn't that cool?" he said. "Now you two look upside down to me, but I look upside down to you. Except it's strange, because to me, you're the ones that are upside." "We get it," Ava cut in. "Do us a favor and stay down there." Lucian said nothing, his mind still replaying the ceiling caving in, the children beneath getting crushed to nothing, their lives winking out quickly, simply like the putting out of a candle. Mike's screams reverberated over and over in Lucian's head, so fragile and pleading that he thought the sound would simply shatter into nothingness. "Hey," Ava said, snapping her fingers in front of his face. "Are you listening? Since you seem so disinterested, I suppose I just won't tell you." "Tell me what?" Lucian asked. "He wasn't listening," Babek supplied very helpfully, and poked his head out from the other side of the path. "I said, we're taking you back to the floating island, introducing you to Raven, and then we'll figure out what to do next," Ava said. "If you don't get eaten," Babek said, still grinning as if he had not a care in the world. "He won't get eaten. Unless..." Ava left it at that. "Is Mike okay?" Lucian blurted out loud. "How do I get back to London?" "Who are you for real?" "Who's Mike?" Babek asked, while Ava said, "We just told you who we are." "London," Lucian said, rubbing his head in a vain attempt to cure his headache. "How do I get back there? Where am I now?" "I don't think he was listening at all to anything that we just said," Babek said, sounding a little woeful. "Seriously, what is this, VR? Come on, do you have a phone? The earthquake should be on the global news by now," Lucian said. "What's VR?" Babek asked. "What's a phone?" Ava asked at the same time. Lucian sighed in frustration. "Then this is all probably a dream, right?" "A dream?" I envy the people who are oblivious enough to still have thoughts like that about this cruel world. Moons above, you're as clueless as a banana flea. Best we keep it that way, Ava said. We're going to go now. If you throw up, please do it over the edge of the island and not in the cave, unlike some people, Ava said, with a significant look at Babek. I only did that once, Babek pointed out. Well, maybe twice. His last words slurred together as suddenly Lucian felt himself lengthening, stretching beyond his ability to stretch, like a snowflake in a winter storm, like a boat in a hurricane, like a leaf in a tornado. Lucian was thrown around all over empty space, stretching. He tried to move but discovered there was nothing to move. He wasn't himself. He was a cluster of emptiness. He was a stream of stardust. He was the universe. He was riding on the tail of time itself. Bright colors and lights everywhere, and then darkness, and then... Lucian landed headfirst into grass that was wet with morning dew. His right arm was stuck underneath him. His left leg twisted painfully, plus something gritty was in his mouth. Spitting dirt, he raised his head, then slowly pushed himself upright. His eyes had to adjust to the light. When they did, he could see Ava to his right, standing and brushing off non-existent dust. Babek was to his left, removing himself from a very deep faceplant. Sunlight streaked through the canopy of leaves above, tainting everything a faint green color. A rabbit was eyeing him skeptically, chewing its grass very slowly, the way an angry bull might. Dragonflies whizzed merrily overhead, oblivious to the three children beneath them, their delicate wings reflecting sharp little bursts of light into Lucian's eyes. Ugh, Bebek moaned, looking green. Can't you give us a little more warning when you teleport us? You should be prepared for anything, at any time. It's not my fault you're all so delirious and incompetent, Ava said. Delirious? When am I ever delirious? Bebek sputtered. Lucian sighed, craning his neck to look up. It was not a very elegant position. Besides, it looked all the worse for the weary condition that he was in. Is this Earth? He mumbled. How did we get here? This is only a recreation of the space-time realm, part of the not-Earth, which is a chain of floating islands. It's not real. And we got here by teleportation, duh, Ava said with a roll of her eyes. She was right. It really didn't seem so much like real Earth. Everything was a little too sharp, a little too detailed, as if each blade of grass was its own world. Everything was disturbingly two-dimensional, like it was all a flat photograph and there was no definite space. The effect was dizzying. Lucian had to lay back down to adjust for a moment. The rabbit snorted victoriously and kicked dirt at him as it hopped away. Get up, Ava snapped. I think he's playing dead. That's probably smart. I should have done that when I first met Raven, because she doesn't eat dead stuff. Right? Right? Actually, you might want to get up, Lucian, Bebek said. Lucian managed to push himself to his feet, his head still spinning with nausea, stumbling over himself. It was then that he noticed the huge cave yawning in front of them, its teeth of rock and intruding tree roots surrounding the entrance. Beyond that, he couldn't see anything, just darkness, broken only by clusters of tiny glowing mushrooms. Their shine was eerie, chilling, yet cheerful, reminding Lucian of miniature stars fallen from the heavens. All except two of these mushrooms were a peaceful, ghostly blue. Lucian's breath caught. Amongst the still silence of the cave, two mushrooms burned like fire. Two mushrooms that were almond-shaped. Two mushrooms that blinked. They weren't mushrooms. They were piercing gold eyes, fading into bronze around the edges, with slitted pupils that enlarged until the colored part of the eye was just a thin ring, the way a cat's eyes did when they were about to pounce. The plants themselves seemed to lean forward in anticipation as the rest of the creature emerged. In the cave's hollow void, it looked like a shadow come to life. Lucian's gaze darted to its paws first, huge and weighed down with claws that gleamed obsidian. Then he saw the four carefully held wings stretching from its great arched back. The wings were structured like that of the bats, or dragons, but covered in smooth, strangely webbed, scale-like feathers. The creature itself looked to be a dragon of some sort, but with a dark hide of feathers rippling over lithe muscles. Down its back ran a line of knife-edged spines, starting from its mane, ending in a burst of fur at the tip of its tail. Gaze pinned on Lucian, the creature uncoiled from its throne of rock and earth, emerging into the sun. As the light hit it, dazzling reflections of deep magenta, rich purple, turquoise, and glints of silver revealed themselves, hiding mischievously between the creature's feathers. With a guttural purr, it flicked its tongue towards the three humans, looming over them, taller than an elephant, belittling even the giant oak trees nearby. But most terrifying of all were those two beaming eyes, like twin lanterns imbued with golden fire, deep and wise. "What is that?" Lucian gasped. Then halfway through the sentence, his throat collapsed with fear and he snapped his mouth shut. "You mean what is she?" Ava corrected. "And she's a gargoyle mutation." "A gargoyle mutation?" Lucian said, or somewhat said. It was more a series of terrified choking sounds. "No, not a gargoyle, a gargoyle," Ava snapped. The gargoyle, in response, laid its large, horned head on Ava's shoulder, mewing like a gruesome cat. A gargoyle is like a dragon, but with scales pulled so long they look and work like feathers. Plus, they're really smart, and they live somewhere. Ava told me, but I forgot, Bebek explained. "Right, yes," Lucian said. His shock was starting to fade. and now he became quite aware of the painful scrapes on his arms and his gasping for breath. "Why is she a mutation?" he asked, trying to keep the gargoyle's attention off of how potentially edible he was. "This is Raven," Ava said, ignoring his question, scratching Raven under the chin. Lucian just silently rubbed his arms, trying to get his goosebumps to lie back down. The gargoyle diverted her attention from Ava back to Lucian, who tried to make his face look as polite as he could instead of fearful, then wondered if it mattered at all, if Raven could even read human faces. But how could a beast with eyes like that possibly not understand? "Let's not waste time," Ava said, striding quickly into the cave. Babek hurried after her, pulling Lucian along, so that he had no choice but to stumble into the forbidding darkness. Ava held out her open palm, her pale skin looking almost gray in the cave's dim light. Lucian swallowed a gulp of air in alarm as sparks dashed through her fingertips, briefly illuminating the sharp features of her face. He watched waveringly as a puff of flame erupted from Ava's fingertips, fluttering gently in the darkness. Ava tilted her hand to peer into the light, watching it grow into a roar of billowing fire, holding it up like a beacon. Lucian shuddered with alarm as the flame exploded upwards, brushing against the stone of the cave's ceiling, and then dispersed evenly, washing every inch of the cave with warm, flickering light, as if they were inside the fire itself. Lucian could now see every detail of the cave's crumbling stone walls, arcing upwards to form a dome-like shape. It was a large enough space for 30 or so people to comfortably gather. Lucian tripped over himself, suddenly thinking of people falling, screaming, running. He banished the stir of memories and stepped farther into the cave's warm glow. In the brighter light, the mushrooms growing from between cracks in the stone looked bleak white, like sun-washed bones, instead of fluorescent blue. With a sense of peculiarity that brought on a rush of strange emotion Lucian couldn't name, a table stood in the corner of the cave, made of unpolished wood that had not been stripped of its bark. 4 chairs surrounded it, although one was on its side and missing a leg, scattering splinters off its wound. On the table was a candle and tall, wobbly stacks of paper that looked, Lucian thought with a start, like they were melting. He stepped closer and realized that the paper was indeed melting, slipping waxy corners off the table to drip down into an opaque yellow-white puddle on the floor. "Come sit," Babek said, shuffling forwards to the nearest chair, rubbing his hands together in anticipation. Lucian sat, avoiding the puddles of melted paper. Raven huddled down next to him and started gnawing on the broken chair, breaking the sturdy wood into sad little shards. Lucian shifted uncomfortably, farther from her teeth. "London," he repeated. "I need to get back to London." "You're serious?" Ava said loftily. "Look, Mr. Hopeful, there's no way out of here. You come in and you don't go back out. Don't keep asking a wall for a door." "I don't need a door," Lucian snapped. "Just a window." "A way with words, huh? That's not going to help you here," Ava said. "Maybe we should fix him first. His wounds, I mean," Babek said, getting up to dig around in the pouches attached to the saddles on Raven's back. He dug out a bottle of paste and tossed it at Lucian, who had not been expecting it and caught it rather awkwardly. "Fine then," Ava sighed. Lucian unscrewed the cap of the bottle and peered at the mysterious green-blue paste inside, hesitant. "Spread that onto your wounds. It'll sting quite a bit, but your cuts and scrapes will heal in a matter of minutes," Ava said. Lucian set the bottle down onto the table, ignoring its minty smell. Who knew what it would do to him? "So how do I get home?" "Stop asking," Ava snapped exasperatedly. "There's no way out. This realm wasn't designed for there to be a way out." Lucian tried his best to hold her icy gaze. "Look, here's what you need to know," Ava said. This realm was formed by the overflowing negative energy channeling from the other 6 realms, and it grew stronger until it completely overtook the empty pocket of space between heaven and hell. And so the gods decided to contain the extra evil energy into a new realm, this realm. It's separated into countless layers, each its own world, much like the way the third realm, space-time, is separated into planets and galaxies. And just like space-time, this realm has diverse plants and animals and intelligent species. Space-time? Bebek echoed. Why is it called that? Ava sighed very profoundly. It's a realm based on the principles of space and time. But isn't there space and time here too? Lucian asked. Yes, but it's not an infinite loop like that of space-time. It had a beginning, since the realm was created after the making of the larger universe, and therefore it shall have an end, during which everyone in here will inevitably die, if you are so close-minded that you believe in death, that is. As for space, distance can be traversed with the passing of time, which, as I just said, is not definite in this realm. Therefore space isn't either, Ava said evenly. I don't understand, Bebek whined. I don't think that's how physics works, Lucian pointed out. That doesn't make any sense. Not my problem. Anyway, you can't traverse between realms, Ava said. Then how did I get here? Lucian interrupted. Ava paused. Divine power must have granted you it. The universers, perhaps, or the gods. But if they want you in here, then they won't be sending you back out before you complete whatever you're here to do. What am I here to do? Lucian asked. How should I know? Ava said. Do I look like a god to you? You made fire explode, Lucian pointed out. Anyone can do that, Ava said. Really? Bebek interrupted excitedly. Can I do that? That'll be cool. I thought it was just an Ava thing. How come you never explain things to me? It's a fear-in technique, Ava said, waving away the question. It doesn't matter. Now, is that how you make water and earth and plants do what you say? Bebek interrupted. Obviously not. That's Silvorian and Gobnovrian and Monficanese. Now, back to the earlier topic. Can you teach me all that stuff? Bebek interrupted again. Sure. First, you walk away from me, and then you keep walking, and then you never disturb my sight ever again, Ava snarled. Raven laughed, a growly, cough-like sound in the back of her throat, which at first Lucian thought was the sound of a large cat hacking up a furball, until he saw Raven, feathers pulled back, mouth open to show teeth in a grin. Ava, Lucian cut in, looking away from the sight of a nightmare creature smiling. How do I find a universer or a god? Maybe they can get me back home. I'm sure it's some kind of mistake that I'm here. You don't just find them. You can't, Ava said. Anything can be done if you try hard enough, Bebek said, beaming. Get it through your skull, you idiots. There are some things you can do and some things you cannot. Getting out of this realm back to whatever hole you crawled out of is of the latter, Ava hissed, slamming a fist onto the table so forcefully that the wood cracked. There was a moment of tense silence. I don't know what of the latter means, Bebek finally said. Never mind. Are you using that herbal paste or not, Lucian? Ava said tersely. You can have it back. I'm not going to go around putting mystery stuff on open wounds, Lucian snapped back at her, and threw the little jar of paste a bit more forcefully than was required at her. She caught it between 2 fingers so smoothly that Lucian's anger redoubled. Calm yourself. We won't be getting anywhere at this pace, Ava said. Like where? Where are we going? Bebek asked. Nowhere. You are staying here until your bones rot if you interrupt me one more time, Ava said. See, I told you, Bebek whispered out of the side of his mouth at Lucian. She is very mean. Lucian sighed. Just a dream. This is all just a dream. It has to be a dream. Because this is simply not possible. Teleportations and monsters and never-ending bridges, but then why does it feel so terribly real? He thought. Still convinced that you're dreaming, Ava said, as if she'd read his mind, and Lucian shifted uncomfortably on his chair. "In this realm, you focus or you don't ever wake up again. Understand?" He didn't answer. His mind had wandered over to whether he could run away and survive on his own until he found a god or a universer and begged them to let him out. Ava tilted her head. "You don't know, do you?" Lucian bit his tongue before he could ask, "Know what?" She wouldn't answer anyways, and he was done making himself look stupid with all his never-ending questions. Ava stared at him. "None of it. I suppose they erased your memories when they sent you to the third realm." She trailed off. "But Ava, what about the living tree?" Babek said suddenly, jumping to his feet as if a great idea had suddenly struck him. "We could take him to see that, couldn't we? You said its fruit could send events between realms." "Events, yes. People and fleshed elements, any solid matter. No," Ava said. "Events?" Lucian asked. "Moments, turning points, certain spots in time that can change history forever," Ava explained. "Not people, unless you're suggesting that Lucian is a plague or a huge explosion or the hatching of a god or something." "No, but," Babek said. "What if I do something? If I make an event, then could we send it to a different realm, my realm?" Lucian asked. "You'd need to see the future to do that. Besides, it would only send that event, not you. You'd still be stuck here, and it's always risky making a big change in the universe, big enough that you can channel it to a different realm," Ava said. "The only way would be to bargain with the gods themselves, ask them for a way out." "Then I'll do that," Lucian sighed, voice cracking. "How, may I ask?" Ava said. "Unless you plan to kill yourself and meet them in the afterlife." "Is that possible?" Babek asked. "Why don't you try it and report back to me?" Ava answered flatly. More silence. "Well," Babek finally said, "we could just go and see it, couldn't we? The living tree, I mean. We could just try. I have this feeling that something will happen today." "You expect me to trust your intuition?" Ava scoffed. Lucian gasped as his rib cage contracted like something had pulled his lungs together, the same feeling he'd had earlier, back on the bridges where he'd awoken. Shadows wreathed from the hollows in his soul, nestling themselves in his bones. Ice coldness spilled from within the dark side of his heart, filling him entirely until he felt numb. He couldn't describe the feeling that came next, like he was suddenly seized by the universe itself, and before he could stop himself, he blurted, "You would be wise to do so." "What?" Ava scoffed, turning her head towards him, and for a quarter of a millisecond, Lucian saw realization flash in her eyes. Terrible, powerful, beautiful realization. Then her expression went as emotionless and blank as ever. "Fine," she relented, and the strange feeling released Lucian from its grasp, like claws retracting from around his throat. He gasped as the feeling of cold dissipated, and the shadows withdrew from his soul. "Whoa," Babek said, reaching a steadying hand toward Lucian. "Are you all right? What just happened?" "I don't know," Lucian croaked, his voice thin. "I do," Ava said, "and it means we don't have much time. A month, maybe, or two." "Let's go," she said suddenly, standing up quickly as if startled by a whip. "Where?" Lucian asked. Ava looked at him, the hollows of her eyes looking very, very grim. "Just hope that the living tree hasn't gone dead yet."